I'm Katherine Flashner, and this is The Truth Is, a podcast about discovering what it means to live your truth, even when it's messy, when it unravels the plans you thought you had, and invites you to step into the unknown. Each week, we explore practices, stories, and conversations that illuminate the ways we find and follow our own path. This is a space to slow down, ask questions, and uncover what's been quietly waiting inside of you. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to The Truth Is. I'm Katherine Flashner, and I'm so glad you're here for the start of this new season. Whether we know each other personally, you were with me during season 1 in peak COVID isolation, or you're brand new to the podcast today, welcome. My hope is that as you listen, you get to know me a little more, but even more, that this space helps you get to know yourself. The questions I've built this podcast around are big ones. How do we live in alignment with who we are? What does it mean to step into our truth? What does truth even feel like? And how does it shape the way we live, work, and move through the world? I can't tell you that I have any of those answers, but I believe in asking the questions out loud and asking them together. For me, the past year has been a lot of letting go of versions of myself that no longer felt true, even though I tried to cling on to them for dear life. I walked away from a relationship last year, and then earlier this year, I left a job in a corporate identity that I built for over a decade to step into unknown territory. At times, I've questioned what I was doing, and it's really felt like giving up control. I certainly don't know what's going to happen, but it's also the first time in a while I feel like I'm really living my life as me. And that is starting to feel much more important than anything else. And one thing I want to say to set the tone for this season is that I don't really believe in giving advice. What I do believe is in the power of sharing our experiences. I can speak to mine. My guests can speak to theirs, but only you can speak to yours. So if something in these conversations reflects back a truth of your own, that's the point. My guest today is Katherine Naylor Pullman, the founder and CEO of Our Third Place. Inspired by the idea of a third place beyond home and work, she's created a membership community where networking turns into friendship. Through intimate dinners where phones are put away, people get to come as they are and real connections form. And what I love is that for Katherine, storytelling has always been the through line. Whether as a theater kid, in her media career, and now as a founder, creating a space for perhaps the most natural storytelling around a dinner table. And dinner is a ritual and gathering place, feels like the perfect metaphor to begin this season. It's a place to exhale, to show up as you are, and to connect in ways that let all the different parts of us be present at the table. That's exactly what Katherine and I explore in our conversation. How meltdowns can lead to clarity, why nurturing friendship is different from simply making connections, and what becomes possible when we stop compartmentalizing and allow all of ourselves to show up. I feel so fortunate that Katherine came into my life when we both worked most recently at Hello Sunshine together. And it's been a gift to reconnect with her on this journey of building her own community and her own brand as I build mine. Katherine and her team at Our Third Place are giving The Truth Is listeners a little gift. You can get 1 month free on memberships with code TRUTHIS. That's TRUTHIS, and you'll also find it in the show notes. Here's my conversation with Katherine. Katherine Naylor Pullman, welcome to The Truth Is.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
I'm so excited to be with you. We've spent a lot of the day together unexpectedly, and it's been a treat to catch up. And I'm so excited to sit down with you today to talk about Our Third Place, which you're the founder and CEO of. Our Third Place is a global dinner party series and community designed to connect women across their industry. And there's a lot of exciting change on the horizon now that you're stepping in. This is your full-time role. You've educated me on the way these dinners are set up is really intentional. And there's a couple ground rules and then a couple kickoff questions, if you will. So I wanted to start our conversation today with inviting you to maybe set us up the way you would set up a dinner.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here. So, if you were to come to one of our dinners, your dinner host would welcome you and about 7 to 8 other women, and you all would go around in a circle, and you'd say your name, where you work, and then we choose one work question and one fun question. So for the sake of right now, I'm going to ask you a work and a personal question. But before then, there's 3 ground rules at every dinner. The first is come as you are. So if you need to show up in sweatpants and cry because your babysitter canceled last minute, that's totally okay. If you need to order champagne because you got that promotion, if you need to vent about what job offer to take or not take, whatever you need for those 2 hours, the phones are away. You were there just to come as you are. Our second rule is to use confidentiality when appropriate. And our third rule is to practice the pivot rule, which is my favorite rule. So the pivot rule is if at any point you feel uncomfortable about what's happening at the table, a conversation that's happening, you can say pivot, no questions asked. And you can use the pivot rule as an attendee or the dinner host. So it allows this moments oh, okay. I have a safety net if anything's being discussed that I don't want to talk about. Okay, so for today, work question, let's do your win of the week.
Okay.
And since we're both Swifties, what's your favorite Taylor Swift era?
Ooh.
For the personal question?
Okay, mine, 1989 is big for me.
Okay.
I think it was 2014-ish, just as music does for everyone. It brings you back to a specific time in life. And end of college was such a nostalgic time for me. So 1989, work win of the week is having this conversation. I was telling you this morning, the last time I was in New York was about 10 months ago, and it was an inflection point of me for the first time having a conversation about making a big change in my career. And since then, we've both left our corporate roles to pursue ventures of our own. And so it's wild to be here 10 months later. I was emotional riding here to meet you this morning, just thinking about how much can change in 10 months.
Yeah.
And it feels so celebratory to be all of a sudden sitting with you having this conversation. I couldn't have predicted it 10 months ago.
I love it.
Tell me yours.
My win of the week is I am such a summer person. I love the summer. But this week I find myself being I'm so happy it's fall, and I'm so happy to get back into a schedule and get back into a routine. So I think my win is that I'm realizing that I can be excited about new seasons instead of being scared of new seasons. And my favorite Taylor Swift era is the Red album.
Red's good.
Yeah, but I'm pretty pumped about this engagement era. I personally felt like I got engaged again when I found out that she was engaged. So I'm very, very happy for you, Taylor. I can't wait for the wedding.
Yeah, Taylor, can't wait for you to be on The Truth Is.
Yeah, on it, manifest.
And at a dinner of Katherine's.
And at a dinner. You're more than welcome to come.
Tell me a little bit. We're going to get into so much about Our Third Place and the journey of it. But before we dive in further, tell me a little bit about why those 3 rules or parameters for setting up a dinner amongst strangers and then hopefully friends.
Yeah. So our mission is to supercharge your network with friendship. Mm-hmm. When I sat back and thought about, okay, how are we going to facilitate friendship? It's an ask. I'm asking people to trust one another because that is the core pillar of friendship is trust. So that's why we came up with those 3 rules, because if you show up as you are, if you use confidentiality, and if you practice the pivot rule, all of a sudden you have 3 different elements of trust. Mm-hmm. So here's a perfect example of one that I love to use. I went to one of our dinners and I was having a really bad cycle. Yeah. And I looked at the woman next to me. I'm like, sorry, I'm having the worst period of my life. Yeah. So here I am. I'm coming as I am. she then proceeded to tell me that she was a doula on the side. So she's an ad tech, but her side gig is being a doula. And we ended up getting to talking about what a doula is, how to track your cycle. Well, a year later, when I wanted to get pregnant, I could use that confidentiality card, and I called her and I was like, can I have a conversation with you about getting pregnant? And then when I got pregnant, she was my doula. And throughout the whole process, I got to use the pivot role with her. I could be like, nope, pivot. I don't want to talk about that with pregnancy. Oh, yep, let's go this route. So if I hadn't started our dinner with just being authentic and with coming as I am, I would have never known this was her side gig. And I wouldn't have been gifted the tool of her for when I was ready to have my child. And so a member of Our Third Place is in the delivery room with me.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that. And it connects to this podcast because this has been a culmination of a lot of different experiences as I've had, but as I've thought about what is the container that I want to set having these conversations on my own platform. I love the come as you are. So I think that's such an invitation like for us today. And it's even just funny, like as I'm sitting here with you, like we've had a funny day of thinking we were doing this earlier and here we are. Yeah. And here we are. Like it's the afternoon, it's been a day, and it's a nice permission to just be.
Right. And that's the most like the wonderful thing that when our members come back to me and say, oh my gosh, that was so lovely. I got to relax for 2 hours. That's the biggest compliment. When someone says that they recharge their battery instead of draining their battery in our dinner setting, that's the best. And I think the more comfortable you are, the more truthful you are, and then the more you get back from the world.
Yep. And it's so for me, I went through a formal MBA program in my early 20s.
Where'd you go?
I did my undergrad and I went back from MBA at the University of Rochester, so upstate New York. And it was a phenomenal experience, and it kickstarted my career. And I think one of the things that I was pretty susceptible to, I was 23 when I started. I remember getting to a hotel room at this networking event before the program even started, and I shared a room with a woman that was a bit older than me in the program, and I walked in and she goes, do you want to practice your personal pitch? And I was like, what's a pitch? And long story short, I went through really formal training on how do I articulate myself in 90 seconds? How do I have a strategy around networking? And so we're going to get into all that. I think it's such just like you talked about those principles of how you want someone to leave the dinner, a total reframe on it being an enjoyable experience where you don't have to be so formulaic. So I want to get to that, but I want to start with a little bit about you. One thing I love about you is you talk about how storytelling has been a part of your life from the beginning. So I want to go back to a little bit of you growing up. What do you think is something you think we should know about how you grew up to understand who you are today?
So I was a theater kid, and I did this program on Fridays that would go from, I think, like 3:30 to 7:30, which is a 4-hour chunk of time for middle schoolers, a pretty big chunk of time. And then after all the friends that I did the theater camp with, we'd go to one of our houses and make music videos in the basement. And if you know me as a founder and as a friend and as a partner and as a mom, you know I am still a theater kid who's making music videos in her basement. Like, I just love telling stories and hanging out with my girlfriends and listening to music. And I think I look at the world a little bit like it's in a snow globe in a good way. Like, I really like finding the stories and like finding the happiness. Like, on the way here this morning, I was walking to the subway and I saw these 4 girls all hug each other, and they're like, sophomore year, because it's the first day of school today. And that little moment I could have imagined filming, and it would have been like a perfect shot of a movie. Like, I still think of the world through a movie lens and through a theater lens and through a music video lens. And I think that's important for who I am, because I always want to hear your story. And what better place to tell stories than at a dinner table?
I love that. When I'm in New York, I stay often with my cousin and her children. I was with the little Elle who started 4th grade last night, and she had to answer questions about who she is and who she wants to be. And she had like 6 careers. She was like astronaut, author, singer-songwriter. And I was like, yes, girl. Yes.
Yes.
So once a theater kid, always a theater kid. Talk to me about that thread of storytelling and how it weaved its way throughout your career, from your years in college to advertising and brand partnerships, and now to creating spaces for storytelling around the dinner table.
Yeah, I think it's only with reflection that I did realize that storytelling was the through line.
Yeah. Looking back on it.
In the moment, I was just trying to learn as much as I could about as many different things.
Right.
And so I started at a talent agency because I wanted to be a talent agent. And then I found out about this company, Quibi, and they had a role open in advertising sales. So I was like, all right, I'm going to try advertising sales. And then when Quibi shut down, it was like, okay, what am I going to do next? So I actually went to like a pretty corporate role for about only 2 to 3 months. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, saw that, didn't want that. So over the course of the last 10 years, you would look at my resume and be like, whoa, she jumped around a lot.
Yeah.
I'm actually really proud that I jumped around a lot because A, it's not what anyone tells you to do. Everyone says, be more consistent, stay in your role. And for me, I was constantly bouncing around and I didn't know why. Like, it wasn't like I purposefully was like, do you know what? I'm going to leave this company again. I'm going to leave this company again. Now, looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, I was building my toolbox to now create our third place. And now looking back, I can be like, all of these roles I was in, the through line was that I was storytelling.
Yeah.
If you were, when you're working with brands, which was the big part of my role for the past 5 years, you're telling the story of a brand. When you're selling, you have to be a salesperson. You're telling a story. But I think more so than this through line of storytelling, there's this through line of I was not very good at staying still for long, which I think is also a theater kid.
Yeah.
Like I was constantly in improv class through my 20s of trying to figure out who I was, what job I wanted. And I'm just so grateful that I didn't listen to all the people who told me to not move around as much because it has built out exactly what I needed to build out this company.
It's so interesting you say that. I remember I finished my MBA at 25, and then I was in consulting for just about a year. And then I had a full-time job offer to join a brand team and build brands for the first time. And I remember, just like you said, the narratives I was given from a big team of executives that were like, no, leaving this now doesn't make any sense. It would be a red line through your resume. And so I remember those moments. I'm curious for you, if you think back to those, what is it for you listening to the choice that you ultimately made? Have you always been somebody that's like, I hear you, but I know what I have to do? Like what was making those decisions like for you?
I think I make my best decisions when I'm having a meltdown. Like genuinely, like nothing solved something more than crying to my mom in the kitchen growing up. And so I think that...
Which is a very, not to interrupt you, come as you are
mantra. It's like when I just let go.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, why is this not fulfilling me? Why do I need to make a change? I usually end up crying, and I'm a Cancer for any Cancers listening.
You are?
Yeah. And because once again, when you show up to the world as you are, when you are your authentic, raw self, that's when the world gives you the tools that you need. Like going back to the story about my doula, if I hadn't been honest about my body in that moment, I would have never known. I had no idea what a doula was when I had that conversation with her. But then the world wouldn't have given me her as like a tool.
Yeah.
Another example that I can think of is this summer when I was going back and forth about if I wanted to do this full time. Mm-hmm. I didn't actually have a meltdown this time. I did not have a meltdown, but I had moments of like very real honesty to my parents and my husband and a couple of trusted individuals in my community where there was no strategy. It wasn't about strategy. It was just about how I was feeling in that moment. And that's what ultimately gave me the confidence to go and do this full time. But just, you gotta take off the blindfolds.
Yeah.
And maybe your version of a meltdown is going for a super long walk in Central Park, or maybe it's going for a long drive with the windows down, or maybe it's spending a night in a hotel room by yourself. Like whatever you need just to allow everything to shut off, that is like my best advice on then how to make those decisions that maybe a lot of people don't agree with.
What occurs to me is that you are someone that allows yourself to be honest, whether it's with you or with the people in your inner circle that you really trust, to have the meltdown in front of.
Right.
But I love the admission that it's a part of the process of getting clear on what's next. And you've said this to me in a few different ways, is until you allow yourself to be honest with yourself and then with the world around you, the path won't be yours or won't be clear. There's this great book I just read called The Way of Integrity. And her whole thesis, Martha Beck, is if we're not ourselves in the world, why would our lives end up being true to us?
Ooh, I love that.
Right? Like if I'm posturing as this version of what I think I'm supposed to be, then my life is going to be inauthentic to me. And so I see that in your path. And I love the other thing you said about it makes sense looking backwards, because that feels true to me as well. You don't always get it in the moment, but like meltdown by meltdown, which I think should be celebrated, the next step becomes clear.
Yeah. And what I do love, I have had some of my most clear moments actually at our third place dinners.
Yeah.
And that I'm not just saying that like because I'm the founder.
Yeah.
It is a time to slow down. We are inundated with so much information and we're just go all the time. And a lot of people think of networking as another go thing, another thing on their to-do list. Mm-hmm. What we've built is a moment to just pause time. You're not on your phone. Mm-hmm. There's no logos for you to like take a selfie in front of and post on your LinkedIn. We take one group picture. That's it. But it's 2 hours where you sit down with your girlfriends and you get to talk about whatever you want. And I kind of joke that our third place is kind of like an episode of Sex and the City because you have very different personalities. No one's on their phone and no topic is off the table. So sometimes we talk about media, but sometimes we talk about boyfriends. Yeah. Sometimes we talk about babysitters. Sometimes we talk about Botox. Like it truly, like no conversation is off the table. And that is beautiful as well, because what a wonderful environment to walk into and know that you can seek advice about anything and you won't be judged.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the inception of Third Place. Take us to how it all started for you.
So it started as the Media Dinner Club. We rebranded to Our Third Place on September 17th. The Media Dinner Club came about because I genuinely wanted to make friends in the industry. And I realized after COVID that there was a large gap where we missed out on making girlfriends at work. And a lot of people were working hybrid. And even after COVID, going out with your coworkers just wasn't as much as a thing. And so that was happening. But then also at the same time, unless you were in a senior enough role or had an expense account, it's really hard to afford to go to a lot of industry events.
Right.
And I want to give a big shout out to the Female Quotient, because I don't know if you've ever been to any of their spaces, but they give you access through their passes. So I actually was at a Female Quotient event an ad week in October, and I was like, wow, this is so amazing. They've made this accessible. Big shout out to them.
Yeah.
The next tool in my toolbox I was looking for was friends. Mm-hmm. So I met a girl at a happy hour. I said, got friends in the industry? And she was like, yeah. I'm like, okay, why don't you grab 2 friends? I'm going to grab 2 friends. And let's go out to dinner. And I'm going to call it the Monthly Media Dinner Club.
And put us in time. When was this?
This was October of 2022.
So you spent...
No, 2023.
You had a couple years of working remotely.
Couple years of working remotely. Yep. COVID had happened. I'd moved back to New York, I think, a year prior. And I started the job when I was at Cameo.
Okay.
Cameo had a New York office, but there just wasn't a lot of New York City employees at the time. And New York is also a big city. Just because you're going into an office doesn't mean you're not rushing home to be with your family. So I started it so that I could make friends, period. And it just exploded. Like very quickly, we went from the Monthly Media Dinner Club to the Media Dinner Club. And then within the first year and a half, I hosted over 60 dinners.
Wow. All in New York?
All in New York.
Wow.
And then I was like, okay, we need to bring on dinner leads. Like I can't host all of these. So then I brought on dinner leads. Yeah. Then someone reached out to me in LA saying, can I start this in LA? Then someone reached out to me and said, can I start this in Chicago? So now 3 years later, we are open in 37 cities. I have 90 women on my team who are the chapter leads, the dinner leads, and my leadership team, all volunteer. And we have 1,600 members who are part of now what is our third place.
Looking back on the 3 years of it building is a response to demand that started with you. Like you had a need that you wanted to solve for. And then 3 years of other women wanting the same thing solved. What do you think it's taught you in hindsight of what we're looking for and now what our third place is hoping to solve and bring to the world?
I think after the pandemic, there was then the loneliness aspect that came out of that. And a lot of people, I mean, there's so much research that's been done about how lonely people are. What I'm seeing is that the pendulum swung so far back to in-person and connecting that you're connecting all the time. Now your gyms want you to be socializing with other people who go to your gyms. You have to connect with other parents. You have to connect on LinkedIn and Instagram. And I mean, the amount of places you can connect is through the roof. What I think women are now seeking, though, is that next stage of that friendship. And that's really hard. Making a friend takes time. It takes intimacy. And what we've created through our third place is that space to make friends. And that's what's so important. By the way, depending on your city, like in New York, we have 12 dinners a month. So if you really wanted to really work on making friends, you could go to one dinner every week if you wanted to.
Right.
But I think that's what women are really craving. It's like, okay, we have our connections. Now we need that next level, that more intimate connection. And once you have a bunch of intimate connections, so now they're friendships, what you've created is a community around yourself. That's why we wanted to reframe it to our third place, because you have your home, you have your work, and then you need your community. You need that third place that supports you.
I think you're really getting at something that I find that I've thought a lot about throughout my corporate experience so far is, for me, when I first started my career, there was this clear, like I said, with my early business school experience, this line with like professional networking and friendship. I see you blurring that and bridging how those things coexist in our lives.
Think about any time in your life you've created friends before you graduated college.
Right.
Dance classes, sororities, Girl Scouts. Your entire life, you are plopped into communities where you immediately have something in common. Because it's like, oh, I know her from dance. I know her from camp. Then you graduate and you're like, wait, what do we have in common? Like, where are my people? So by making at least one thing in common, which is your industry, it allows you to immediately have a shared experience. And having a shared experience is important to then creating a friendship.
Yep.
Like, think about when you go to a cocktail party at a wedding.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you do? Where do you live? You immediately try to find like a mutual friend, or you try to figure out if you're both Swifties, or like you need that anchor in order to make a friendship. And we've created a space where your anchor is your job. And your job, by the way, is a lot of time. Like it's 40 hours of your week at least.
Yeah.
Like, we got to get rid of this whole work-life balance, in my opinion. Like, your work is part of your life and your life is part of your work. And what a beautiful thing if you can have it mix.
Yep. And I think for me, I spent some time compartmentalizing it. And I had like my corporate identity over here. I had my creative identity over here. Oh, I do a podcast on the side. I do some theater. I think you're tapping into something really powerful that I see it, particularly in women that are maybe entering a second chapter of their career, where we're kind of like, wait a second, like my life doesn't work that way, where all of these things are separate. And I think for them to come together, one, it can be really vulnerable. I remember the years of, oh, I'm a executive, I'm not going to tell them about what I do for fun. But now I've maybe have found the confidence and the support through community that's been like, no, all of these things can coexist. And so I think you're tapping into something that feels like a new wave of how we relate to the multifaceted parts of who we are in the world, in our careers, in our life, and even in the setting of just a dinner, a 2-hour dinner, the invitation to try on that it can all coexist at once.
Yep.
Versus the earlier experiences I had meeting people at work.
Right.
And it's funny to speak as two ex-theater kids and still theater kids. I used to say this all the time, and maybe you'll relate to it. I used to say, I've always been in acting classes in my adult life. And I used to say—
Can we go to an acting class together?
I would love that. It's stayed consistent with me since shortly after my MBA, when I was out in San Francisco starting my career. I found my way back, and I knew I would. And throughout those last 5-6 years, I would frequently say, why does it feel like when I go to work, I'm acting, I'm performing, and when I go to an acting class, I'm myself? Like, what is that tension?
Gosh, I love that.
Right?
And I will say there are some work environments where they aren't going to be welcoming of coming as you are. And you can still be very private at work.
Yeah.
But your friends need to know who you are.
Well, I want to say to that point, I think it's important that it's a dinner, right? A dinner is different from a workplace. And I think it's important to hold. The workplace, I should say, has its own set of rules that can be different to navigate depending on industry, depending on who your boss is, depending on what your role and experience is. But coming to a third place, a dinner, a separate place where people have shared experiences, it becomes a place where you can figure out everything that's going on over there with a set of not just allies, but like accomplices and peers, and to use your word, which makes the most sense, friendship. So maybe bring us to that. Why the name Our Third Place?
So there is actually like the notion of a third place.
Yeah.
There's a theory about it. But your third place is where you can, like, your acting classes were your third place.
100%.
And why were they your third place?
Because it's funny, I still do them now that I've left my corporate job. And it's become more clear to me in the last 6 months, those 5-6 years where I was doing them outside of my really consuming roles at work, they were the place where I got to just be me and exhale. So it 100% was all of that.
And that's why we're calling it Our Third Place, because the biggest piece of feedback we get from these women are, oh my God, that felt so good. That felt so good. Like, I've literally teared up, like looking out the window of my taxi cab after leaving a dinner, just being like, oh, that was just so wonderful.
Yeah.
And that's what we've built, is a place to exhale. And if you're lucky enough to have an acting class or a sport, like, that's amazing. Like, that's so amazing. I didn't have that in my adult life, and that's why I created this, so that that I can have that third place.
I see this pattern of you've learned about yourself through these conversations with other people. And I think it speaks to a trend that we both think a lot about in the world, where we were in this period of isolation. You know, now as you talk about, there's all these opportunities for connection, but what is real connection?
Right.
And so I'm curious about how you reflect on this idea of you get to learn about yourself through these relationships and through these experiences.
I think I just realized that we've created group therapy around the dinner table.
Maybe.
Right?
Like, but what is friendship if not that?
If not group therapy. And I think so often, you know, there's nothing more powerful than a girl group chat.
Yeah.
You know, when like you have a group chat with your girls and you're like, hey, this just happened to me. I just need to tell someone. And you feel better because you just got to tell someone. That's kind of, in a way, what we've created is the ultimate girl group chat.
Yeah.
And actually, our community, we have a huge Slack community. So once you become a member of Our Third Place, you get to have access to the dinners, and you get access to our online community, which is the ultimate girl group chat. You can ask any questions. You can discuss anything you want.
You know, it's funny because Slack, I'm like, as soon as I download Slack, my first reaction is like, oh, I use this for work. But then you take time to use it to like look at how you've set it up. And you're like, oh, this is not workplace conversation. This is women just openly soliciting questions and wants and needs, whether it's something, just like you said, this integration of work relationship and real friendship, because we don't operate it being compartmentalized. My point being, you've created space for all of the above, whether it's about the need for a babysitter or a personal problem, or, hey, I saw one today, my boyfriend's doing stand-up in Venice if anyone wants to come. And there's also, hey, I need a freelancer, I have a work question like that.
Yep.
To your point, it all coexists.
Right. And what we have seen is that about 87% of the messages that are sent in our Slack community are actually direct messages.
Yeah.
So what that tells me is that people are taking it a step further and having those one-on-one conversations. So you might ask, we have a channel called Ask the Table. You can ask whatever you want. And people will say, DM me, which I like, because then it allows you to have that like private, intimate moment one-on-one where maybe you could have more of a focused business discussion.
Yeah.
And I think that's important as well, is that what has worked about this community is that it's so intimate. So at a dinner, you're not going to be seated with more than 10 women. And on Slack, we're seeing people are even taking that one step further and having one-on-one conversations, which I think is a big differentiator for us. It's like you're not just showing up to a cocktail hour and hopefully making a connection with one person. Or going to a cocktail hour and looking around the room for your friend, like, and only talking to your friend. You're creating a space that is much more intimate, and I think that's a really big part of the equation of what we've built.
Yeah, there's real value in the curation and the getting to sit down at a table. It's funny to think about that. I just interviewed my little sister who's starting a career in the culinary world. And we talked a lot about just the ritual of coming together at a table. And it's deeply human. It allows you to be yourself. And so I love that is the core platform that you've offered people.
And it's a way to reset. Like, I was just thinking this morning, I was like, I need to sign up for one of our dinners. Like, I need a night out. I have a 5-month-old. So I need to go to our third place. Like, I need that reset. And growing up, I'm just realizing this is the first time I've ever thought about it. But growing up, we had family dinner every single night, no matter what. Whoever was home, we had family dinner, and it was our reset every day. So we've created a reset button.
You made me think of something really cool that you shared with me recently. You became a mother 5 months ago. And you really beautifully told me the other day that you gave yourself time to prepare for the birthing process. And, you know, I would love for you to share that story. But what I love that you said was that wasn't in your nature usually to take that time. And I believe you said you meditated for the first time. So I would love to hear a little bit about that.
And I will give
experience.
Props to my boss. Like, she was, like, when I said I'm leaving 2 weeks early, like, I was going to work until my due date. Because at the time I was at a full-time job. And about 2 weeks before my due date, I was like, I have to stop working. And she's like, thank God, you need to calm down. Like, you're going so hard. And I was really glad that she gave me that space. So shout out to her. But for the first time, I mean, I had my first internship when I was a junior in high school. And before then, I was a pretty competitive athlete.
You've packed it in.
So I've packed it in. And for the first time, I think since I was 12, 11, I took a 2-week break. Actually, a 2-week break. And by the way, it wasn't a break. I was 9 months pregnant. So everything was hard. Vacation. But it was not exactly a vacation. It was a moment to learn about my body. And so I went to physical therapy for almost every other day. I learned breathing techniques. I went through all of my notes that I'd had from my doula. I learned how to meditate. I went to this yoga studio, Humming Puppy in New York City, where it's basically a dark room where you like hold positions for a long time. And I basically told myself the room was like the womb. Like, I was picturing how Libby felt by pretending that Humming Puppy was a womb. Like, I got very woo-woo for the first time in my life. And then I even took it a step further, and I learned this practice of picturing Libby coming from somewhere and then coming to Earth. So I'm a mega dork. I pictured that she was coming from Valaris, which is a mythical city in...
You'll have to educate me and anyone that's not a sci-fi
so
fantasy.
If you've read A Court of Thorns and Roses, there's a city called Valaris, and it's like a starry, midnight, navy blue world. So I learned how to picture that Libby was in Valaris and that Mother Earth was coming and bringing her to the earth.
It's storytelling.
It's totally storytelling. Yeah. And guess what? When I was going through those contractions, I thought of Humming Puppy. I thought of Valaris, and I thought about where she was coming from. And it made the pain not scary. It made it part of the story of getting my child here. Right. But if I hadn't slowed down, if I hadn't prioritized my body for 2 weeks, and I know that's a very privileged place to be in and that some people couldn't take 2 weeks off of work, but it was just this wonderful moment that by prioritizing my body, coming up with what I wanted my narrative to be during birthing, that I ended up having a wonderful birthing experience. And I was really lucky for that. Like, a lot of women don't have the tools to even think about birthing as a wonderful experience. And by the way, I hated being pregnant. Yeah. So I'm not like one of those people who was like, the whole thing was fantastic. Yeah. No, being pregnant was the hardest thing I've ever done. But because I took those 2-week break to get to know my body, understand what my story was, understand what Libby's story was, I was able to really love delivery.
There's something really beautiful about slowing down to remind yourself that you're in charge with your own narrative.
Yes.
And
yes. Needlepoint that on a pillow.
What do you think it was like that for it being the first time in your life looking back where you're like, I need to stop? What, if you don't mind my asking, what do you think it was that got you to that? Was it that like the enormity of, there's not much bigger than preparing to birth a child. Do you think it was the enormity of that?
I was so sick and feeling so just not myself that what made me do it was that I was desperate for change, because I was trying everything to work until the end and my body was giving out. Like, my body was like, you have to. And my doula told me something. She was like, if you are filled with adrenaline leading up to your pregnancy, your body's going to think you're in fight or flight, which means that your body will have a harder time going into labor because your body's going to think you're getting chased by a lion and that you haven't found a nice tree to go give birth in.
Wow.
That was also a big thing. I was like, wait, if I don't slow down, what do you mean this baby's not going to come? She's like, you have to calm down your body. Because I also was like, this baby just needs to come early. Like, I'm so sick of being pregnant. And both Madeline and my mom, Madeline was my doula, were just like, you have to calm down or this baby's never going to come.
The thing I love about what you just said is it's something so out of your control of when it's going to happen.
Yep.
And it feels like there's a lesson and some wisdom in that. And I love thinking on this podcast about what does truth feel like and how does it show up? And there's something really cool to me about this journey you went through of surrendering to what you couldn't control, but you developed this awareness of, oh, if I slow down, maybe you can't control when exactly the baby comes, but you can have a say in your experience of it.
There's 2 things there that I think is interesting. A lot of people ask me for more curated dinners.
Yeah.
So like it to be all women in ad tech or all women. And I push back because I'm like, everything is so controlled.
Yeah.
Like, enjoy the fact that you don't know who your dinner partner is going to be, that there is no agenda. So I'm going to think about that next time someone asks me that question. It's like, no. Just enjoy
see
that
what
it's
happens.
Just see.
Yeah.
And like, everything is so calculated these days and everything has an algorithm and you can put anything into ChatGPT and it helps you solve a problem. Like, what a beautiful thing that you're just kind of trusting the universe this time around.
Yep. That brings me to a question I was really excited to ask you. You've said you never liked the idea of having a 5-year plan, and people ask you that. What has not having a rigid plan allowed you to discover, and how does that look?
Yeah. For years, people would ask me, are you going to make the Media Dinner Club your full-time job?
Yeah.
I was like, no, because that's not what it is. Until it was. Until what I realized was that our community has grown so much that it deserved someone to have this be their full-time job. Like, now we have a friend-to-friend mentorship program, and we are developing career coach hours. And what we're doing is we're listening to the community and building from there. So since the beginning of the Media Dinner Club and now our 3rd place, I've just built off the reflection of our community.
Yeah.
And this August, when I realized like, okay, someone needs to step into this full time. And I had a conversation like I've brought with my team, and I was like, who's going to do this? And it was like, okay, Katherine, you're going to do it.
Yeah.
So the beauty of not having a 5-year plan is that you get to make decisions that reflect your community instead of trying to predict your community.
Yeah. For me, I love acting because you're just get to be in the moment. You do all this prep, and then you just get to be with a scene partner and meet the moment and see what comes up. And I think applying that to life, I know for me, can feel really scary because it is like we were just talking about, a letting go of control.
Mm-hmm.
But it's funny that, one, I find that it takes a lot of pressure off, and it comes from a place of belief in self or belief in what you're doing. And what I hear and what you're sharing is it was never about you leading. It just so happens that now the right next step is for you to lead.
Yeah.
And I love that it wasn't the idea 2 years ago.
Right.
But it was meeting the moment right now. And it sounds like there was some ease in your team reflecting back at you. No, it's
time.
You.
Like, please make this your full-time job.
Yeah. And I imagine there's trust in that. And now you've taken that step, and each subsequent step will reveal itself when the moment comes.
And that also doesn't mean you don't work hard.
Yeah.
And I think people get confused by that. It's like everything happens for a reason, or the world's going to give back to you. And yes, those things are true, but it also requires a lot of work. Like I worked incredibly hard to build our third place. I didn't know what I was working for. I didn't know that I was going to be a full-time CEO. I guess what I'm reflecting on right now is it's okay to work on something really hard and not know what the finish line is, because the world will eventually give back to you. Yeah. Everything will eventually happen for a reason. So it's having the patience to not know what's next and continuing to work hard. And I think that is really key to this equation.
Even just listening to you be on calls a little bit today, like you've done all this work the 3 years to get to this point. And I hear it in how you present it. You're like, this is what I'm doing. And you legitimize the path.
Yeah. And this is my first baby. I love our third place. Like I do. And I think because there wasn't an ultimate goal and there's no board telling me we have to hit this many members in this many days. And it's just a community built out of pure passion and pure love. And I think that's why I can lead authentically. And I think that's why people are responsive to when I just tell our story.
Yeah. If someone's curious about our third place, what might it look like for them to get involved in their city?
So we are open in 37 cities. So just head to the website and choose whatever your network is. So whether you're in the media network or the finance network, you become a member and then you get to choose a dinner. It's literally that easy to start going to the dinners. And if you don't see your city, you can become a digital member, which just gives you access to our Slack community. And if you don't see your city and you are actually really interested in starting that city chapter, I'm not kidding you, please do reach out to me, because I have never actually only once I proactively reached out to someone saying like, hey, would you be interested in starting a city here? But all other cities were started because someone reached out to me saying like, hey, can I give this a shot?
Yep. Okay. Some fun ones to close us out. What would your 80-year-old self say to you?
You've only just begun.
Fill this out. I used to think blank, and now I know blank.
I used to think that that there were people who actually had it all.
Yeah.
And now I know that everything is very hard. Anything that is worth it is hard. So if someone does, quote unquote, have it all, A, they probably don't. And B, they're working really hard to have a lot of good things in their life.
What's a ritual that keeps you?
Rosé on the front porch with my mom.
That's awesome.
Or my best friend, Emily. Or my sister, Brooke. We drink a lot of rosé in the summer.
That's so sweet. And then lastly, what's one truth you're in the middle of learning
how to do this. I am an accidental CEO.
Why accidental?
Because I did not start this thinking that this was gonna be what it is. So I'm learning how to be a CEO if anyone has any tips or tricks.
Well, it's been such a treat to spend the day with you.
The whole day.
And to have this conversation.
Should you come over and meet my baby and go out to dinner?
Probably. Where can people connect with you in Our Third Place?
The best place to connect with me is just on LinkedIn. I'll give you a code so that any of your listeners can get 1 month free of Our Third Place. And follow us on Instagram for the most up-to-date visuals of our parties and our dinner parties.
I love you're bringing friendship back.
Yes. Friendship is cool.
Yep.
Girlfriends are cool.
Yep. I love it.
I love it.
Thanks, Katherine.
Thank you.
Well, friends, that was my conversation with Katherine Naylor Pullman. Be sure to check out and follow Our Third Place. I'll share links to everything they have going on in the show notes. I'm a member of the LA chapter, so maybe I'll see you at a dinner soon. One thing we touched on that I wanted to underscore that's been really instrumental for me this year is giving up or loosening my grip with the worry about a 5-year plan or a 6-month plan or needing to figure out what the whole picture is going to look like. And at first, the idea of giving up that fixation felt maybe irresponsible or like there's no way things will work out if I don't figure out where all of this is going. But it's also been incredibly freeing. There's a wonderful book that I recommend that talks about this called Directional Living by Megan Hellerer that captures this idea. And she uses the metaphor of being on a road trip and only worrying about what is in front of your car and the headlights versus the entire trip. Like you have to take care of the next aligned step that's right in front of you. A recent example of this for me was getting the chance to sit down and interview Katherine. I was on a flight to New York, and I always had the intention of wanting to interview her, and I texted her for coffee, and 24 hours later, we were sitting in a studio having this conversation, and we realized that we were launching our respective projects, me, this podcast, and her, Our Third Place, on the exact same day. And so talk about alignment. So I'll leave you with this. What's your next aligned action? Maybe it's something small. Maybe it's reaching out to someone you've been meaning to. Maybe it's sitting down and writing for an hour. Or to keep with today's theme, who's someone you'd love to sit down with over dinner and really connect with? Don't forget you can get 1 month free on Our Third Place memberships with the code TRUTHIS. Details are in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening to The Truth Is. I'll be back next week with another conversation. I hope you leave this episode with something that stays with you, a question worth holding or an insight worth following. If today's conversation resonated, I'd be so grateful if you subscribed, left a review, or shared it with someone you'd like to invite into the conversation. You can also follow along at The Truth Is Podcast. A special thank you to the people who make this show possible. Editing by Dan Kroll, music by Will Savino, visual identity by Sarah Gaynor and Jonathan Bush, and guidance from my friend and advisor, Natalie Tulloch. I'm Katherine Flashner. Thank you for listening to The Truth Is.